Hope you didn't pay too much for the motor. Hello YouTube, 2.5 RayS here. This will be episode 2 of the RSTI swap. At the moment, I haven't done too much since the ending of the last video. I haven't pulled the heads off yet. I just haven't had the time to get around to it. So far, I've just done a lot of cleaning up around here, stuffing all the trash back into the STI. The tranny is still inside, as well as the diff and the front subframe and the rear subframe, as you can see. Other than that, still dealing with a lot of BS. A lot of the suspension in the rear doesn't want to come apart, like the sway bar end links are spinning free, and lateral links, same thing. There are bolts that are just spinning free in their hole. Not too worried about that for now. The biggest BS thing that I'm still dealing with is this wheel. This wheel is still attached, and as you can see off camera, one of the few things I actually did do was try to manipulate the lug nut off. I've already tried a number of methods. Trying to use a torch wasn't good enough, didn't get it hot enough. Trying to get vice grips on it and ripping it with vice grips, that didn't work either. Earlier today, I tried to get it with this carbide bit. As you can see, there's progress. It's actually shallower. I started to just drill out the stud. I think what will need to happen is the rear subframe will have to be dropped with the wheel, and you're gonna have to drag it out with the wheel attached and then figure it out once it's out of here. In addition to that, some more parts came, including this triple gauge pod that goes at the top of the center console. I'm gonna be using that with the Defi gauges I got for an 02 WRX. Also ignore this junk here. Not performance at all, at least I don't think so, but I got this from Japan, legitimately from Japan. Took like almost 2 months to get here. This is the front power brace bar from Cusco, and I just kind of wanted it because I saw it, and I have no self-control on spending money. Don't know if you can read that there. Has a bunch of Japanese writing, so that's how you know it must be good. I wanted to paint this thing white, among other things. I'm gonna have the Brembos powder coated as well, along with the intake manifold, which is, oh geez, let me pause and show you this. It is just terrible. You can see the original red crinkle coat paint is still on there. Previous owner just Walmart painted this blue. I think this is like FizzCan, but it's, now that I'm looking at it, it looks a little bit tougher than Walmart FizzCan. Oh, in addition to that, was selling the hood. The person I was selling the hood to actually didn't really want the hood scoop, so fine by me, I kept it. So I'm gonna try and re-clear that on my own. If I can do a good job of it, it'll be a little side episode. I'd like to give it a shot with my wing as well. As you can see, my wing is also, it's always been like this. It was like that when I bought it. Total side flex here, but found this cool part out, and I finally got a bucket seat. Sparco Evo 2. I'm in the process of cleaning up. I got it for the price of a song, but it's in questionable condition, so definitely needs some cleaning to do. Thousands of little side projects, you know how it is. Previous owner probably taking up the cam sprocket here. Look at that terrible condition this is. I was just in a rush, probably spun it on, didn't even care. Some people, man. I already got it loosened, but fuck. now we have the cam sprocket off, and there's a bit of a problem. I have my friend Dave here. If you'd like to point out, Dave, what you think has happened.
Well, what's happened here is this index pin is now sitting in an elongated hole. That happened because the cam stopped abruptly. Pulley wanted to keep turning, although the cam wouldn't. And it probably took a couple of iterations of that before it hogged itself out that much. Another problem this had is when it was assembled last time, you can't see it from this angle, but around on the other side here, we see a lot of gouges and damage from just debris that was left inside the cavity of the pulley during assembly the first time.
Poor reconstruction.
Poor reconstruction. Yeah, this had to come off with a slide hammer.
I think in addition, thank you, Dave. So Dave got a slide hammer, and he barely managed to take it off. The cam sprocket was totally stuck on, and so I'm thinking that what had happened, in addition to this guy saying he bent the valve, that's the extent that he knew. But clearly, the cam's probably messed up too, and really hoping a piston isn't messed up so we don't have to go into the bottom end of this thing. But when we pull off the heads, we'll know for sure. So thank you very much, Dave.
No problem. So yeah, it looks to me almost as though that bolt had backed off a hair. Because it's definitely sliding against it more than once.
Look, it's totally just spreading where that pin was. It's totally just spreading around, ruining the metal.
Yeah, but
That's
you can
crazy.
see how sideways that hole's gotten. That pin was almost laying flat in there.
It was all cockeyed when it was running.
Jeez.
So yeah, you need to figure out how much slop you had there. Add the slop to the other side, and that'll be how far out your timing was total.
Jesus Christ. So we've pulled the heads off now, and severe blow-by the analysis, right, Dave?
Yeah, what we're looking at is enough oil coming past the rings to darn near hydrolock this thing. I've got probably a 2 millimeter, almost 2 millimeter gap between my piston and the cylinder. The pistons can clearly rock in their bores.
Yeah, it's totally moving.
And there is oil sitting on top of the rings such that as I rock the piston, the oil squirts to the top and sits on the piston deck. So the cylinder was literally half full of oil as we took it off, and the oil is slowly dribbling down back into the case.
Yeah, and even pulling the spark plugs, one of them was just totally bathing in oil.
It was bathed in oil clear up the threads, and as we were taking the head off on this side, we could also hear compression escaping the head a little. Well, it wasn't a compression sound, it was an oozing sound
It was kind of
as oil started going back down. Find out more here as we take the other side off. We still don't know if this crankshaft turns.
As for the valve, I mean, this side at least doesn't look terrible. Nothing looks...
Yeah, but you can't tell anything from a closed valve. All we know right now is that they're all seated at very close to the same height. This doesn't tell us anything about, is my valve stem bent? Do I have a stem that's too long holding a valve open? This is the back side. The business side of these is hidden. It's where the valve touches the head. That's important. We want to have a total seal there. We want it round. We don't want to see any blow-by on any of that part. Now, we had that seized cam on this head here.
Cam, especially the conditions where covers were sitting.
And we could also see where some of the valve buckets were not spinning underneath that jammed cam. So I'm still expecting to see something amiss when we take the head apart.
Yeah.
We're just at this point not real sure what it's going to be. Okay, so yeah, this is part of the damage we saw when we took the sprocket off there. And this camshaft was jammed in its journals to the point that after we had the caps off, we had to put this screw back in and force the camshaft to rotate in order to get it out of its bore. This one, on the other hand, I just grabbed and pulled straight up like we ought to. So it's generous strangeness on this thing. And still kind of looking for exactly what's doing it. Here's that oil-soaked plug. You can see it's soaked clear up the threads. And as we pulled it out, oil came out over the top of the plug. There was actually oil in the plug well that wasn't there before we extracted the plug.
So this side actually looks a lot better than the other side. Also smells better. There's proper lubrication. The other side most likely was not getting enough oil and was also burning oil.
Now you can also be because that head was too hot on that side and the oil wasn't effective in its lubrication because it was over temperature. But the oil that's in here doesn't look scorched. Either the oil was changed after the fact or it was a real localized kind of thing on the head there that didn't go along for very long. But the oil doesn't look like what I would expect for any prolonged driving like that.
Okay. Give it some noise. Yeah, that doesn't sound very good.
So I'm guessing there's a 3 millimeter gap between the side of the piston and the cylinder there.
Okay.
This one isn't much better.
You want that one to come all the
3
way up?
millimeters is just shy of 1/8 of an inch.
See how the piston is actually able to rock in there?
Totally moving it.
And
You're moving it in every direction.
Oh golly, yeah, I can even rock this one sideways. There's a bad pin on this one.
Hold on, we have a... Dad, can you do that a little bit further?
So this one is actually rocking along the axis of the pin too. I don't know if that's the pin itself or the big end of the rod right now doing that.
You're also pushing out a bunch of water, probably oil.
Are you seeing water?
Yeah. No, that's oil. It is oil.
Yeah, the other side I saw water coming out of. Okay, so let's compare it to this side over here.
It's not moving as bad, but it's still moving.
Well, it's moving along the axis of the wrist pin too. Now you see how we're also dripping oil out from under this
you're
as I
pushing oil
squeeze it? And I'm also rocking that piston. Okay, let's give it a 180 degrees there.
Okay. Right there?
Yeah, let's do it right there. I'm not seeing where that water I saw came from. Now see, this one isn't rocking
In the axis.
in the axis direction at all. All of its rocking is this way. Now this side is definitely worse, and again, not too.
Oh, it is.
Oh yeah, it is moving along the wrist pin there. Yeah, and that's tilting. That's not a flat move along the axis. That's yawing on the axis there. Okay, well this one here now, we can see the water bubbles.
Yeah, so there's definitely water from somewhere.
Yeah, there's water coming in from somewhere
This was
there.
the good side, allegedly.
Yeah, but this is also the side that I saw the water on. I didn't see any on the on what we're calling the bad side there.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, way too much oil coming through here. Water. Hope you didn't pay too much for the motor.
No, I bought the car, so.
Okay.
Well, it's definitely going to be down to block halves at some point, because this just won't. This won't do it.
Well, I think you're about ready to take it to the block if you want to. You're going to need to pull the pan off, but you can definitely split the case.
Yep, that's I think what we're going to end up having to do.